All right, everybody. So, welcome back to another episode number whatever, season two, episode number whatever. Well, that's what we have back end engineering for, right? But super excited about today. We have a special guest, Chrissy Barron, with us, and we are going to dive into one topic and then kind of see where it takes us from there. And Seamus was really interested on a post that Chrissy had relating to um, goodness gracious, there's a work-life balance essentially, right? It was kind of like the main gist of it, understanding those things. And in a digital world, which again now is overrun with AI and a ton of things that just keep you more connected than ever, algorithms, you name it. I think this is an important thing because I remember the beginning of my career, there was no balance, and it was like I got to reply to this person's email at 9 o'clock at night because it's not within this like 12-hour window, and like you feel these stressors of the modern work environment. Only to fast forward now and be like, tomorrow. So, I would probably botch an introduction for you, Chrissy. So I'll have you kind of introduce yourself to the audience here, and then we will kind of dive into that.
Yeah, that is totally fine. So, I'm Chrissy. How I normally introduce myself is I talk about my background. So, I've been in marketing for 13 years. I have ran marketing agencies. I've scaled my own e-commerce company, and I've been the VP of marketing for a $200 million company. I've been the growth marketing lead for the 12th largest pharmaceutical company in the world. And I love marketing. I love efficiency. And now I most recently left corporate America and I work as a fractional CMO in the capacity of freelancing. So I can talk about that post that Seamus was talking about.
Yeah,
So
Perfect.
yeah, go. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I watched that post and it was a post and then it was like a few stories. So I was like I like went back and forth in it, but from what I remember, it was a few months back. It might not even be in 2023. It might 2024. It might still have been in 2023. You were talking about, from what I remember, kind of just like the discrepancy between leadership, their expectations of you, the job that you did, but then the compensation, or not even the compensation, but the respect factor. And I don't know, it just really like enlightened something in me, and I was like, dang, like this needs to be heard, because I feel that this is not just a Chrissy situation. I feel that, you had your unique situation, but I feel that also people in your situation have also been through this. So I was wondering if you could just go through that. Obviously, we don't need to
Yeah,
name names, but like just basically what
yeah,
happened.
definitely. So it's funny because I sat on that story that I posted about for almost 3 years. So I was the VP of marketing for a $200 million company. I was good at my job. I associate being good at my job, not in an opinion, although I do love myself, in KPIs. I was able to increase their return on ad spend. I was able to decrease their spend. I was able to increase their website conversion. I was able to launch a huge celebrity chef to their channel and their integrate with their brand. And it was also the most toxic and traumatic work experience of my life. And so I sat on that story for 3 years, and it was a mix of shame, because my inside voice says suck it up and do better. Okay, so I had to work on even feeling empathy for myself. My inner voice gaslights me. It says, you're being awful dramatic. So what? He yelled at you, so what? And I had to work through that and like really believing my own story. And then I thought, well, who actually cares? Who actually cares that I went through this? And I was actually at my dad's house, and I forgot what happened, but I just got re-triggered and I said, I'm just gonna make a TikTok. Did not script it at all. I just word vomited for 5 minutes and it got over 300,000 views. And I remember thinking every view, I thought, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh
Mhm.
shit. And I'm like, whoopsie. Because there's an aspect where I understand that, look, there's a legal level to everything. Okay. The line of legality. Defamation is on this side and freedom of speech is on this side. And you have to ride that line pretty closely. And you can't just go around saying people are bad and this and that if you don't have evidence. And so obviously I'm very confident in what I speak about because I have evidence of everything I've ever said. So I talk about the fact that that was my dream job. Okay. I was 30 years old and I got that job. I beat out men that were 20 years older than me. I showed to the presentation with a PowerPoint presentation and a strategy. Again, I didn't know I beat those men out. He told me, my boss told me that, like, oh, you should be grateful. He said it. It wasn't like he was proud. He was trying to make me, there was a power dynamic the whole time. I think my naivety is that I was raised mainly by my dad. Okay. So maybe I was raised to be a man. And we don't have to break down that gender, but I was raised to have the mindset of how hard can it be? Like, how hard can it be? I can do it. To the point where if I would second guess myself, my dad would say, why? Why would you? No. And so I kind of was naive going into work and going into these situations and assuming that everyone wanted my help solving their problems. Except that what I did is I went from pet to threat really quickly because they liked me until they didn't like me. And then when they didn't like me, they made my life a living hell to push me out because they knew they couldn't fire me because I'm a female. And so the legality is there, right? Obviously, wrongful termination in California is a I forget what it's called, but you can just fire, it's at will employment. But there's still wrongful termination because I was doing my job well, which is why they didn't fire me. So instead, they made like everyday psychological warfare. I would equate it to like what people have told me about military boot camp, except I've never been to military boot camp. So that could be a very not a good comparison, but I would not know. My entire day would be based on my boss's moods. Okay. My boss would slam my door open. He would cuss at me. He would yell at me. He would erase my whiteboard. In meetings, he stopped the whole meeting once to tell everyone I was typing too loud and then made me type to prove that I was typing too loud and then told me that I needed to type quieter. I don't really know how one can type quieter, but everyone else had the exact same laptop. At my 3-month review, the only review he told me was that I was too excited like a puppy and I wagged my tail too much. And my thought was, would you ever say that to a man? I don't think so. And then they hired this guy. He's a super sweet guy, not his fault. Super young. He came from a consulting career, right? One of the big 5. And 2nd month in, he went on a 2-week vacation. And I said, well, you question my work ethic all the time, but he just went on a 2-week vacation. My boss said, yeah, but I just know he works hard. And I thought, oh, and then it kind of clicked. And I said, oh, I'm not getting respect because I'm a woman. But that had never occurred to me, right? Because how I view myself is like a man, like I'll speak up. I will make my space known. What I used to do in board meetings to, fuck with them is I would stand up when it was my turn to talk. And the first time I did it, they all stood up too. And I said, oh, did you guys have something to say? I thought we were talking about marketing. And then they all looked flustered and they sat back down. Because what they used to do is walk into my office and stand over me and literally talk and yell at me. And I'm like, you petty motherfucker. Okay, like, let's go. And so when I left that job, it wasn't that I was leaving just a toxic workplace. I was like mourning an entire life that I thought I was going to live. Because my whole life, I wanted to be the chief marketing officer of a Fortune 500. Like, that was my path. Like, I was going to do anything to get there. And I'm like, if I quit this job, this vice president of marketing job, I was there for less than a year. People are going to have questions. People are going to ask me. People were already asking me, like, why would you leave? They just signed this big celebrity chef, the largest celebrity chef in the world. Why would you leave? And like, this was in 2021 and I didn't have the answer. I just kept telling everyone I wasn't a culture fit. And they're like, what does that mean? And I didn't know the politically correct way to say what I meant. And so it was, I ended up, I cried a lot. I did a lot of therapy. I did trauma-based therapy, which is called EMDR. And I view trauma as an iceberg. Okay. So there's a whole level underneath that has nothing to do with what happened to you. But when you go through day to day, you're going to get triggered. And so, this job was so triggering. And I just wanted to like sort through that and kind of figure that out. And and I just made a post talking about that experience. And I'm not kidding, I probably had 100 DMs from women saying, like, I get you. I hear you. Like, this happened to me. I couldn't speak up. This happened to me. This happened to me. And I originally wasn't going to continue to talk about it. It was just supposed to be this one thing. And then I was so incredibly empowered by these women sharing their story with me that I was like, it almost like made me angry. And then I was like, oh, hell no. We are not allowing this in corporate America again. If it is Christine V. Barron v. corporate America, let's go. Okay. And that's kind of what happened.
That's, I mean, God, it's crazy that we're in 2024. And granted, that was 21, but like that kind of stigma can still exist. And I mean, it is a different life that we live being men versus women. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, even psychologically. Like, my wife has been robbed at gunpoint. And
Oh,
yeah, yeah. So certain things
how
that I
scary
don't
for
pick up
her.
on. I know. And things I don't pick up on or notice, she'll call me if there's like an instance where like there's just weird people at Target, she's like, I just,
Yes.
and then like me and a buddy talked about this the other day. We're like, he's like, yeah, my office is not in the greatest area, but like this other female coworker I have like wants to come on walks with me now that I'm taking that as part of like my lunch. And she's like, no one would do this with me before, and I don't want to do it alone just because of the area. And like, it doesn't even cross his mind that it's like, he knows it's bad, but it's like, I'm a dude, like, like it's completely different. But also too, like you just said, like from a performance related standpoint, like that, I don't know, like you just said, it's like, how do you, yeah, I literally landed this dream job. I'm terminating myself after a year based off of the hostile work environment that I'm facing, right? And then you have to continue to get judged by it because now it's like I mean, do you even include that on your resume anymore? In a sense, I know you're freelancing, right? But like, do you even include that you
I
have work
do.
history?
Yeah, I do. The way that I originally swung it when I left was it wasn't a culture fit. And then I kind of just like played around with that. I was like, do I want to say it was a contract role? Do I want, like, I mean, the world is my oyster. Okay. So, but in the end, I realized that me not telling employers was actually me not being able to test red flags. Because if you don't vibe with my story or you immediately don't believe me, that's a red flag. We're not going to work well together. And there was some interviews that I went through, one of them being a very large, the largest subscription box for clothes, like workout clothes. And I had an interview with this guy, and I mean, right off the bat, he didn't like that I was interviewing him because that's how I interview. Like, you want me to work for you, I get that, but then I have to decide if I want to work for you. And I mean, it was so painful that we both ended it early, and I ended up telling him like, "Hey, I don't think I'm a good fit for you, like to work with you." And he said, "Yeah, I agree." It was like, "Cool, okay."
It's. I mean, I'm gonna take a few things from here and just step back for a sec. But like the fact that that went on and it was blatant in front of everybody else in the company showcases that it's obviously not you. It's the leadership and everyone else abiding by it, you know? To me, that's like an injustice, and to stand for good, I don't know how I would have dealt with the situation, not even in your shoes, but like as a standby person, because it's like, what the F? But it's like, yeah, we're 2021, it's 2024. Like, there's got to be some stand up for our peers, can be some stand up for the work relationships, the boundaries, because that doesn't make sense. And people then go like, well, it's corporate America. It's just cutthroat. And it's just like, I think that's a lazy excuse to not put in effort, to be kind. Or if you're not kind, at least make the workplace not toxic. And it's, yeah, I think this is still part it's an insidious part of our lifestyle, and I think people need to realize that like these stories are still very true, and they're crazy. And the second part there, I think too, what I'm realizing is you do have a certain personality trait, right, Chrissy? But people need to be accepting of that, because it's like, sure, personalities, egos, whatever, but if we're just here for results and you get results, then like, let's go, right?
It's funny because that's how I explained. I literally had a call with a potential client today that I closed. I told these two men, they own a $30 million business. And I said, look, they said, what's your bandwidth? And I said, I don't want to be your employee. I said, this is what I'll do. I'll work for you for 5 to 7 hours. This is what I'll charge you per hour. And I said, look, and if you hate me, we shake hands and walk away. That's completely fine. I said, give me a month, because I'm not scared. I will get you results. And I'm not saying that, other people don't need to be like me. I get that I can be brash, but at the same time, um, I've had people be like, well, we only want to accept you as a W-2 employee. And I said, I'm like a try it before you buy it person now. Because of what I've been through in corporate, I don't like, the thing about me is what I realized in that period when I left that job is that I actually never wanted to be dependent on anything ever again. And I'm very independent and strong-headed. And so, but the thing is, I grew up in a corporate world. Okay. So my dad was a very early stage in a corporation that ended up blowing up. Okay. So I was 2 years old playing in an office. I grew up in that office. I played with fax paper. Okay. Like I ran around that little office. Like some people are born in other places. Some people are born in a restaurant. I lived and died in that office. Okay. So, I mean, I would do schoolwork in the office. I would play under his desk. I would do whatever. Right. I have a sister too. She was there. And, so it's a joke that I joke that I was bred for success in corporate. Okay. Like I witnessed it. I watched it. I learned it. But the thing is that I then learned my boundaries, and I realized that. So I went back to school and got a master's degree in psychology. The joke is that like the most messed up people go do that. And that's okay. I will vibe with that joke because like I also wanted to understand how I thought. But at the same time, what I realized that it's okay to have your own boundaries with work. Like it is okay that I will never allow someone to yell at me and scream at me and cuss at my face again, because I will say, you seem really upset. And I realize that we fight to the level that we're healed, except you're fighting like a toddler. And so are we a toddler? And what I like to do is really be purposely condescending, because it's like, what the F do you actually think you're doing getting in my face, yelling at me right now? Like, that's going to be a hard no for me. But the thing is, if you combat aggression with aggression, I look wrong, right? Because we accept and allow men to be aggressive in the workplace. But if women are aggressive, they're crazy. So the thing is, it's not a fair it's not a fair field, right? If we're in a meeting and Joe gets mad and throws a chair, we're like, Joe, he is so expressive. But if I get mad and I throw a chair, they're like, she is actually crazy, call security, right? So it's not a fair playing field. So therefore I cannot play the same game that you're playing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be so condescending. It's going to piss you off so much that you actually are going to want to hit me. And if you hit me, I mean, that'll be crazy, but like, yeah, I'll press charges, and then that's the path that we'll go, and that's fine.
Oh man. Yeah, because I noticed that too with that MS in psychology. Like again, like understanding. Did you do that after you finished your tenure with that organization, or was it before?
No, so when I was running my own direct to consumer e-commerce company, which is kind of like the small circle that we all know each other from. It was a supplement company in the CrossFit space. I had a co-founder, Mike. He's great, very smart dude. So I knew it's kind of weird story. So I had met this guy, Justin Sua, through CrossFit. Justin Sua is the sports psychologist for the Red Sox, the Browns, the Heat, insert all heavy names. So Justin was somewhat of a mentor to me. And I originally went back to school to get a master's degree in sports psychology. And then I'm talking to this other guy that was the sports psychologist for the Blue Jays, and I'm like messing up. I'm not a sports girly, so I'm probably messing up all these names. So, but but look, I can be a sports girly to work with a pro team. Okay, so that was my goal. I was like, that was what I was gonna do. Then I realized there wasn't an actual path for that. Right? It was I had just spent 4 years like essentially pimping myself out, which you guys know as nutrition coaches, you have to pimp yourself out. You have to be
Mhm.
a freaking booth girl. You have to like, oh, and it can be exhausting. And so I just was like, I can't do that again for the rest of my career. Like I can't be that person on social media that's like, hi. I needed a break from it. And so I just switched it to like regular psychology, but it was research based, not scientific based. So like I could never go and be a therapist unless I got a PhD.
Mhm.
So what I ended up using it for was human behavior and just
Mhm.
understanding from a marketing perspective, human behavior. And yeah, so that's what it helped me with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I have so many questions. Obviously, it definitely
Oh,
has
me
a
too.
huge role as it relates to like modern psychology. And then again, I'm sure you look at like heat mapping of like a website for somebody and understanding the consumer behavior. And I mean, it goes back to like how most people didn't expect Facebook's product to be human data effectively, that they kind of pimp out across, to everybody so you can understand how to target a market better and actually get an ROI on your, investments and your advertisements. And it's a very interesting thing. And I'm a math guy, Chrissy, by trade, I would say. So I'm very analytically driven. One would say I mean, math and philosophy at the highest level mesh, right? Whereas I could see how marketing and business and psychology mesh at the upper echelons as well. Um, but in the coaching space, the psychological component was something I wasn't prepared to be so heavily involved in. And I tell Seamus this all the time. I'm like, a point in case, we had one of our coworkers do a little presentation about like psychology of women and being a man and talking to a woman patient. And she did a fantastic job explaining little details. And I was like, a good thing I do most of that because like I've kind of learned that kind of, you know, I can be imposing or the way that I phrase something and like, body image and, the DEXA scan and all these things are, we want them to change a behavior, not to be like fixated on something and not do anything about it. Um, and I know one of our other colleagues, and he's actually been on the podcast, not to call him out on this exactly, but he's like, yeah, I really like talking to women about my kid. And I was like, oh, bro, like hopefully you've read their health history and they have kids before you even just drop that, because right there could be a red flag if that woman wasn't able to rear a child and you open with that. So I'm always so hesitant and like, again, this is actually what one of our coaches is like, very open-ended questioning in the beginning just to like get to know them and make them feel comfortable versus me ever
Yeah.
divulging myself right away until I know it's like quote unquote a safe space. So it's very
That,
interesting.
that that's like a really, really good thought process to have. I don't want to say I'm impressed with your empathy because you're married and you have kids. And so that, I mean, at some point it forces you to be a little bit more empathetic.
Hmm.
But just the thought of so enabling and empathy, it's like a fine line, right?
Hmm.
Because you want to have empathy for what they're going through, but you cannot enable their actions because then you're not really helping them
Hmm.
do the path that they want, whether that's gain more muscle, lean weight, whatever, or lose weight. And so it is a fine line. And I think the line is like sympathy. And I think sympathy is bullshit. So there's an analogy that Brene Brown created where um there's like someone in a hole and they fell in the hole. And sympathy is like looking in the hole saying, like, hey, you good? And they're like, I'm stuck. And they're like, I'm so sorry, but you stay on top of the hole. And empathy is like climbing down in that hole with them and being like, yeah, it's okay. I'll just sit here with you. And we tend to try to lessen losses. So if Seamus said, I lost my job. And I say, wow, buddy, there's so many other jobs out there. You're going to get one, right? That doesn't make us feel better. If anything, I'm trying to speed up his process of healing. I'm saying, get over it. It makes me uncomfortable to hear that, right? And empathy is saying, wow, that must feel really unsettling. Like, I know that you are a dual income household. That must feel really like nerve wracking for you. And being there in the moment with them But I also think there has to be boundaries with what you both do, because you cannot end up being someone's therapist. And that happens so many times with nutrition coaching. Like, I feel
Yeah.
so bad because, yeah, you end up hearing, but it's like, why? Why? Because there's so much psychology in eating. Okay, then we ask why. There's this game of
Yeah.
asking why 7 times to get to the end of it. And it's like, but why? Why do we have so much emotion with eating?
Yeah.
And it's like, is it marketing? Is it like, why? Right? Because I'm not an
Yeah.
emotional eater. I'm an emotional non-eater. The more stressed out I get, the less I eat. Right. And it's
Yeah.
like, I just forget. I'm like, so especially if I have a problem and I can't fix it, I'm like, don't eat, don't talk to me. I need to get in there and fix this problem.
Yeah.
But
No, you make some really good points. I mean, that emotional ability, that empathy and the enabling line is good. And then I want to add on to that, but it's like empathy, then accountability, right? Is I think like the best aspect of a coach. I know that Precision Nutrition, we just had that director on, who was also our mentor, and they had the Changemaker Academy go through like a 2 to 3 year study with like some of the best coaches. And not only are the best coaches, they have empathy, but they're also focused to like get you to act, right? Because you can be like, oh, I definitely hear you, I understand. That's the first part. But here's the data. What do you want to do about it? And then they hold you to that. And I think that's an important thing. And I keep telling this to Marcos every day. And I think I've heard this from like the top leaders in the nutrition space, like Elaine Norton, say like, if I were to go back to school for like a master's or PhD, I don't think I would go back for more nutritional or scientific data in terms of like exercise science. I understand that stuff from a baseline in my degree. I would go to like behavior change. And so I'm going to pick your brain here because both Marcos and I are really into this. I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit, if that's okay with you guys. But Chrissy, in your degree, in terms of like human behavior, especially around marketing, we could keep it around what you're really smart on or like maybe what you've learned. But what have you seen to be the human behaviors that drive consumers to then pay for a product? Like, what are the key metrics? So for example, I know Marco said, hey, Facebook gives you the data. Like, what is the data that people say, hey, this is the click rate, this is the URL is the right thing, the colors, like what are the things that people should be thinking about, or whatever it is.
I love your, like, I'm going to pull in marketing words. I know URL. um,
It's the only one I know. It's the only one I know.
okay. No, that's a good question. So what aspect of human behavior actually matters in like actually getting the person to convert? Um, so I tell this to my clients all the time and I'm like, hey, don't shoot the messenger. You're going to hate me for this. People want to be entertained and they want to have a personal conversation. And I'll give you a great example. When you go to Walmart, you don't expect them to know what you want. You go in there because it's cheap and it's fast and probably no one's going to talk to you. That's great. But if I walked into Chanel, if I walked into Louis Vuitton and no one spoke to me and no one helped me, I would be like, F you guys, look how much money I'm willing to spend here. Okay.
Mm,
So I want you to think of the psychology of having a great shopping experience, but then how can we put that online? And so I refer to everything as a friction point. And so what normally I'll do as like if I have a new client, is I'll go through their checkout process and see how many clicks does it actually take me to check out. Because if you make it too complicated, the person's not going to get there. But then you have this caveat over here, which is you don't want to dumb it down so much to where it just feels like it's for every single person on the planet, because you do have to niche down at some point. And so that's where landing pages come in. So let's say, I'll give you an example. I'm working with a kava company. Okay. Kava is like a drink you drink to
Yeah.
relax. So I cannot have this one image of an athlete doing CrossFit land on a landing page that's talking to kava connoisseurs. Like, the discrepancy is so large. It's like, this is a beginner conversation. This is an expert conversation. So you'd have to have the right landing page for them to not have a high bounce rate, which is they get on the website and they get off. So right there, it's messaging, and then it's called AdSense, right? So making sure the ad matches with where they're landing. Then, okay, so now you got them to your website. That's awesome. That's step one. Now, is your pop-up too fast? Because here's the other caveat. Everyone says, well, we need a pop-up. But what does you as a human do as soon as you get on a new website? How annoyed are you that pop-up popped up? And you're like, get out of here. I haven't even looked at anything yet. But then you go, well, crap, oh, I wanted that discount, right? So that's where you have, you keep the like widget in the corner somewhere so it doesn't fully go away. And then they go, well, how are they looking for products, right? So how much can we personalize that experience? Are we having shop by category, shop by pain, shop by experience, right? How can we personalize it that much? Even if we're not saying women that lived in Woodland Hills that have kids that like wearing pink, right? We're still saying, are you a mom that's looking to relax after a long night? Like that in itself is speaking to a huge demographic that's still niched down. And it also makes people feel represented. And I think that's what a lot of, obviously, depending on the generation that we're speaking to, millennials, that's exactly what we're looking for. Gen Z is a little bit different. Gen Z expects to be entertained. And so they actually don't, like, you could have the crappiest content, but if that content, this is how I explain TikTok. TikTok is the nosy neighbor. They want to know behind the scenes. They want to know the drama. They want to see like what you're doing back there. They don't want to see polished. They want to see behind the scenes. And so the other thing I have a hard time with clients is like getting them to step away from the idea of commercialization, because Gen Z wants to see the drama. Okay. They want to know this little key piece of information, and then they're going to like your brand for it. And so it also comes down to like what your target market is. But essentially, just to recap, looking at the friction points and making sure that the person that you're targeting is actually going to make sense when they land on that page.
I think you brought up a good idea, like right there, $1 million idea. Like you get the alert. I'm not so much annoyed about the alert, but it's the fact that I have to close out of it. That's always like a friction point for me on a website. But it was like, hey, by the way, if you sign up for our newsletter, I'll give you 20% off for your first purchase or whatever. And then it just disappears into the corner, like a reminder. I'll be here when you need me later is like a cool way of a website. And I would actually really appreciate that, because it's like, oh, fuck, I have to go back and reload the page. I'm not doing that. I'll come back another day, and boom, you like lost the sale, you know?
Well, most of the time you don't show the pop-up again for the next 30 days. So like then you have to scroll down to the footer. Yeah, that's normal. So what you can do is you can do an exit intent pop-up. But imagine you jumped on the screen pop-up. Then you go, actually, I'm mad. So you go to click out and it's an exit. Like you're going to have such a bad taste in your mouth about this brand because you're going to say like they're too invasive. But I use Klaviyo. It's like I love them as an email marketing tool, and they have this thing where it's just a like a widget on the side of the website, so it scrolls with you and it just says 10% off or whatever, you know, you could say whatever you want. And I think that's actually more helpful because it's so funny. I'm a marketer. I'm like, we need a pop-up. But then as a user, I'm so annoyed by pop-ups because I'm like, I just got here. You know, it's like when you walk into a store and someone's in your face immediately and you're like, no, I don't know what I need help with. I just got in here, right? That's the pop-up. And so it's like, yeah. I mean, I like, to your point, they don't make a better user experience for pop-ups yet, because imagine in the future if we could base it off of people's IP addresses and how they interact with websites. And let's say someone does jump on a website and their typical thing is to immediately fill the pop-up. But let's say this other person jumps on the website and they do not immediately fill the pop-up. It would be amazing to be able to trigger that pop-up based on the person's behavior, but we are not there yet.
Maybe in Web3.
No, that makes Web 3.0. That's a beautiful. We just had a guest on yesterday about that whole. I was just kind of talking to him about like, you know, there's us, the people that are on the back end of a business, right, making this, and we're over here explaining it to the CEO, the board. The people are like, oh, look at how amazing this product is, right? Like we built this amazing thing, and then you put it into the market and it's a shit show. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for example, right now I'm consulting with a company that's like doing diagnostics and stuff like that. And I was like, who's doing the QC? Who's doing the quality check? Like, who is testing this? Like, and we were finding things like, for example, you have to put your weight, height, birth, whatever, right? And these numbers were going to like, it didn't have restrictive numbers like, hey, born 1701 instead of 2001, or when you get the feedback of like your forms, it's like grafted in the wrong way. And I'm like, dude, I don't care how amazing your software is, your product is, if someone can't play with it in certain parameters and then have it easy, they're not going to use it. You cannot confuse the consumer. If the consumer gets confused, they just want to go. And I think that's like the important thing. And I love that because it's like Marcos and I will go deep into like, we'll go deep into science and stuff because like we nerd out about those things. But then we have to come back and go, okay, how do we say this stuff that is so complex and esoteric to someone that has never heard of it, but they're here in front of you right now and they're willing to purchase? How do you say it to them? That's always been that's been my thing, Chrissy. Just how do I make the complex become more simple,
So, two things. The highest converting ad copy is written at a third grade reading level. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be general. This is going to be masses, right? I'm not targeting neuroscientists. Okay. This is the masses. The second thing is that, is it Einstein that says the quote that if you can't take, I'm totally botching this, but the idea of it is if you can't explain it in a simple way, you don't get it. And that quote like makes me not sleep at night, because have you ever met someone and they're so full of themselves and they're just like, yeah, you don't get it. And they almost like make you feel stupid. They're like, what do you mean you don't get it? You don't get it. I just said it. I just used the word to explain the word. What don't you get? And then you feel stupid until you leave. And then you go, I don't know if that guy got it, And I've been in so many of those situations where I'm like, I leave feeling like I'm the idiot. I'm like, oh, it's so embarrassing. I shouldn't have asked that question in front of everyone. And then I go, no, I think I asked too hard of a question and they didn't get it. And so I do think about that. How do you take an incredibly complex thing, solution, problem, whatever, and dumb it down? And the way that I do it is I actually reverse engineer this thought process. Okay. So I go into Google or go into Google Ads and I try to understand the most searched words. So let's say I'm just going to say weight loss. Okay. But then the words that are most searched are how to lose weight at night. Does keto work? Does intermittent fasting work? And then you take those high keywords and then you flip it into the ad copy and you say, why doing keto or intermittent fasting doesn't matter. Right. And like you're using data because what you're doing is you're basing off of people's search patterns and behaviors. So you're taking this really complex thing and you're dumbing it down. And the way you're dumbing it down is saying, well, these people are searching for the solution. We have the solution, but now we have to make A plus B equals C here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to take one note there. Marcos did a call. I think he did a seminar with kids, and
Yes.
this is the part where I think it's so brilliant. Honestly, I think kids know everything. I think kids know if you can't explain to them. But Marcos, can you kind of explain like what happened when you did that kids seminar? Like how when you said the thing, I thought you said something along the lines of like, I was actually surprised because by their answer, because it wasn't what I was thinking, but it was also like on the truth or something like that. It was like,
Yeah. So it's probably about a year ago, like almost like to the day, I'm being honest. I did it with like a group of preschoolers, like my son, he was 5 at the time. No, maybe he had just turned 5, right? And then I've also done it with like middle school kids and high school kids. So multiple instances, different demographic, but trying to get across the same message with the PowerPoint for the, upper grade levels, but the lower one was just like, we're going to talk about these things. We're going to look at some stuff and they can leave with one key thing at the end of the day. I've done my job as, the nutrition expert, right? And, as we're talking about it, and I was like, well, what do you think protein does? And then they're all raising their hands, asking questions and saying, I think that protein's supposed to help me like build my muscles. And I was like, okay, that's a good way of thinking. Okay, perfect, right? Yeah, protein equals muscles, And then I was like, what do you think about a carb? I mean, this wasn't exactly the conversation. Actually, I have it recorded. I'd have to go back and watch it. And I was like, so, this is an energy source. What do you think of energy? So we can go out and play. And it's like, okay, cool. Like distilled it down. And it was like they knew nothing about it. And I was like, well, what are you eating? How do you know what you're getting in? And have these 5-year-olds look at a nutrition label for the first time ever. And comparatively, I had like high protein snacks and some other stuff there just to like give them an introduction to it, because Lord knows it's on everything that you consume. And we know that 67-70% of the population is eating, I mean, of someone's day is highly processed food. So what is it exactly? And so we just dove into that. I was like, look at the ingredient list. Can you say any of these words yet? Sight words. And so it was a really interesting experience, because it went a completely different way, because the kids started asking like really great questions, just like you did, Chrissy. And it made me think about how I want to explain this to literally 4 and 5-year-olds. And then I gave them some of the snacks, let them try it out. Like, do you like it? And then there's also the social influence thing, going back to psychology. I went and did that so my son would try some new foods that would maybe have some protein in it. And he started to like something, but the other kids didn't care for it. And immediately he then stopped liking the thing. And I was like, damn, like, there we go. Like, I was like, well, I can't say I didn't try. I spent $40 on these high protein cereals. They're coming home with me because none of the kids liked it at the end of the day. But it was such a cool, and the thing was, like, I brought a bunch of other stuff too that was healthy, and they ate that, and they didn't like, and it's like, it was just really meant to be. I was like, I can use this to my advantage, like hopefully influencing my son's eating at home in a healthier manner, let him gravitate to more whole foods. And all the kids were like, smacking on the fruit tray and things like that. And, explaining to them like, hey, like but these foods don't have nutrition labels. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. They don't. But like, there's a reason why. These can be the components of it. And it led to this whole thing. And it was amazing. And again, then I did the same thing with the middle school kids, and it was a whole different conversation, because I was like, all right, what foods do you guys have in your lunch boxes right now? They pull it out. It's like Takis and honey buns and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, let's compare these things, because I brought them food, because I know, like, if I'm going to try to maybe make some influence, how hard are these things for kids to potentially make and or go seek out with their parents? And these were actually like kids in a CrossFit class in a middle school. And same thing. They're like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be eating these Takis, because like, oh my God, like, you mean to tell me if I build this whole plate of food, it was like the same as this bag? And I was like, yes, like, and they're like, oh my God, no one's ever showed me that before. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. And I was like, oh, thanks. I feel old as fuck now.
That's so
That
funny,
is
dude.
that is so cute. So I wrote down this question because when you were talking, and I think it's really interesting, because if you want to get your feelings hurt, you go talk to a kid in elementary school, right? They will just say whatever they think up front to your face, right? But also going back to the aspect of them asking questions, it's like, why? Why do they raise their hand and ask any question without fear of what other people think? And it's because I don't think they even understand ego yet, right? And so it comes back to the ability to ask a question. And granted, like, let's assume we're adults and like we've paid attention and we're not asking a question that like can be found on our own. We still have that fear of looking stupid. And so I'll give you an example. When I quit my really toxic job, I went through a whole kind of like confidence. I was like, I suck. Like, I'm not good at this. Like, I need to find another career. Like, I went through the whole, so I doubled down and I was like, well, I'm just going to take this course. And so I took this course that was a director of marketing course with the CMO of Google, partially because I fangirl over her. And partially because I was like, well, I'm going to take this course. And so we're in this course and there's 50 people, and it's like a live course every Tuesday, Thursday night. And for, I think it was like 8 weeks. And no one ever asked questions besides me, obviously. I said, girl, I'm gonna get my money's worth, so let's go. And it's like, and I get it, right? It's like, it's so nerve-wracking. You're in front of a bunch of peers, whatever. But then I ended up being remembered by her. She like knew me by first name. She likes my LinkedIn stuff. Like, again, look, this isn't like to get anything from her, but it was, my belief was that I have this almost like my friends joke that I have too much confidence, right? Like I will say a word wrong, but then keep saying the whole sentence. And my friend will call me out and I'm like, don't bring that up. You knew what I meant. Right. Like, and then I almost gaslight them. I'm like, don't be calling me. You knew what I, right. And, I am like the most confident. And it's almost funny because when I get more nervous, I don't go smaller. I get bigger. I'm like, I'm going to double down and take up more space. Like I'm doing Superman pose before I walk into this room and I am scared shitless, right? But I'm like, nope, double down on confidence. Let's go. And, like there's that voice in the back of your head that's like, what if everyone thinks I'm stupid? What if, and when I go do something that's just like, business books talk about a big audacious goal, right? Or something ballsy. When I went and spoke on stage with Michelle Romanoff, who is the founder of freaking Clearco, which is $1 billion company, I'm sitting next to the founder of Farm Girl Flowers, Christina, being interviewed by Michelle. And I had this out of body experience. I was like, bitch, what do you think you're doing up here? Like, it was like, I go, everyone in the audience knows I'm an idiot. I'm like, no. And that was, and it's like, I said, well, I'm up here, might as well double down on my confidence. And so I do think it goes back to this fear that we have of how other people will perceive us. And the analogy that I use is a dance class. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in a dance class, or it's very similar to the gym. When you walk into a huge global gym, you go, oh my gosh, everyone's looking at me. Everyone's looking at me in the mirror. But who are you looking at? You're looking at yourself. So you're not looking at anyone else. Same thing with the dance class. Yeah. Like you are so absorbed with yourself, but you think everyone else is watching you, but like no one's watching you. They're watching themselves because they want to make sure they're not messing up. That is the world, right? Like we are so worried about how people perceive us, but everyone's in their own head about themselves, right? Like I know that awkward thing you said in 7th grade that still keeps you awake at night. But that's not what no one else remembers, like no one else remembers. You have to let it go.
No, that's so funny you say that because I had that with my brother. I was like, I literally said this to him like a few years ago. I'm like thinking about a conversation. I was like, he's like, why are you laughing right now? I'm like, bro, remember that time like a few years ago when I was a kid and I said this thing? And he goes, no, dude, no one cares. No one cares. Like you're over here having like a existential like rearranging or something like that. And like they know, yeah, no, it's so true though. I think we talked about this before, like, but it's like a spotlight effect. Like you think that like everything's on you, but you could use it or you don't. Like I know that no one really cares at the end of the day, because yeah, I'm so locked into whatever I'm doing that it's just like I'm just gonna go do me because no one cares. Like, and if someone
Yeah.
did care, it's probably in a positive, and if they cared in a negative, it says more about them.
Oh, it's so funny you bring that up though, because it's making me think of my wife when we were making this Mediterranean salad. It's the funniest fucking thing, man. And it's cute because like I knew what she meant, but like, so she's like, yeah, we're putting a bunch of stuff in this. We got those gorgonzola beans, and she meant garbanzo. and it, and she, and she got so flustered afterwards. We were cracking up laughing. We could probably still get the same rise and like laughter of it. And just to, like you just said, like and I know this about myself, and she points it out because I don't do it intentionally, but I'm a corrector. I'm like, yeah, you said this wrong, and I'm just gonna let you know now versus like tell it later. But with her, it's like tell her later that she misspoke about something. So I'm like, try to do that now. But like in that moment, I was like, I didn't correct her, and she's like, she said it multiple times, like on a group. I think it was actually in a text thread. I just didn't call her out. She's like, well, you weren't gonna say anything. I was like, if I said something, you're gonna rip my fucking head off.
Guys, just the other day, I'm dead ass in a meeting with a huge client, and I said, yeah, um, it's like we want to correlate, like correlation, and then I go correlation, and then I go, yeah, correlation. At the end of the meeting, he goes, you added an extra word in that word, and I'm like, first of all, why would you call me out? But speaking of that story that haunts you, okay, 7th grade, popcorn reading. I'm all ready because popcorn reading, like you're
Oh, yeah.
pre-reading, you're like, I'm gonna kill this. Gets to my turn. We're reading about Indians. So I go, okay, this must be an Indian tribe. So I go, Choas, the Choas. And someone said, it's chaos in the background. I said, I know it's chaos. I'm reading right now. What don't you understand about that? And then everyone made fun of me for reading chaos choas. And I have never forgiven myself for that. But I mean, spell it out. Choas, okay?
Oh,
No, that makes sense. And those are the things that, like, whenever you see chaos, that'll always bring you back to that moment. And you're going to be like,
All
oh,
the time.
it's
I'm
like me and
"Ugh."
thoracic.
And
The word
popcorn
thoracic.
reading. Yeah. The word
Yeah.
correlation.
Yeah.
Don't add the ization in it, okay? Don't be adding words to other words, okay?
I know what you meant, though. Correlation, like we're correlating it. Like, I know what you meant. You're just making a verb. You're making it a verb.
Oh man.
That part was I go, and like I'm reflecting after my meeting, and I'm like, did I say that word? And then I'm like, well, no one called me out. And then I'm like, well, I guess I wouldn't call me out either because I look really confident saying it. I laughed at myself about that. So.
Oh my god, that's so funny, dude. I'd die.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what we said when we were talking before we recorded. Confidence is a real thing when it comes to like public speaking, because you can bullshit your way with the right amount of confidence and the right amount of, right around of like, what's the word?
Rhetoric?
Not even rhetoric.
Charisma.
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 Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
charismatic, like smooth talking person that has it all together. And it's generally like, I mean, sales tactics, right? And I'm sure they're, and I mean, I worked for somebody that like, I mean, I've never seen someone close so many people in such a short amount of time. And I was like, what the hell is this guy telling people to like just land that people forking out monthly subscriptions of $250 a month? Like it's, as a nutrition company. And I was just like, he must be, I never got to like witness that call of him doing that, but I'm sure it was like very quote unquote scripted to a sense, and so much confidence. Yes, we're going to get you to this, and this is how it's going to go, and blah, 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 through this periodization. And confidence is key, right? And like, again, you said correlation.
Yeah.
I think it is a word. I mean, English is weird, right? You can make
Well, the funny thing about...
I also doubled down and I was like, nah. Of course I didn't believe myself. I said, I'm going to Google it. And then I said, well, there's nowhere else to turn. I'm wrong.
Urban Dictionary.
You know what I meant. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's ization. There should be a thing, but the funny thing, I was off topic real quick, but language in itself, there's no, like, language doesn't exist. I don't know how to say this, but a linguist like was on a podcast recently I listened to. He's like, there's no place for a language. It's just something we all made up, right? So language is something you could just keep building. And he makes languages for like movies, shows, and TV shows. And he's like, yeah, you just make up languages. They just have to follow rules. So there it is, correlation.
That is so like mind blowing, because if you think about it, like we're just using different would it be flexion points when we're speaking,
I think it's
and
phonetics.
then your ears are hearing it, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like language blows my mind. And I went deep when I was younger in my early 20s into Tim Ferriss and went deep into like learning languages in 20 seconds, I never got good at it. And I was very annoyed that he was so good at it. But the fun thing is the part of your brain that develops for second languages fully develops at age 13. But then we are teaching a child their first language in high school, which is they're already 13. So I'm like a big fan, although I don't have kids, of like immersion programs. My nieces are half Korean, half Filipino. They speak Korean and Tagalog and
That's
English.
awesome.
Yeah.
There it
so
is.
And they know, when they're with their grandparents, they speak Korean. When they're with my dad and my stepmom, they speak Tagalog, and then they speak English to me. But I'm like, okay, I would like to learn here. So language is amazing, and it's socially so interesting, right? Because I think we have a certain stigma in America about speaking Spanish, and also you're a dick if you have a negative stigma about that. But my belief has always been like, wow, how amazing. And I've always flipped it around, like, you're bilingual. That's an amazing feat. Because why is it that we talk to kids and adults that know French differently than we talk to kids that are bilingual in Spanish? It's almost like we talk to them in a way that's lesser than, and that always pissed me off. It's like, well, who said which language was better? Because that's pretty amazing that they're bilingual. That's pretty amazing that they're able to fully communicate. To
Yeah.
anything, I regret not paying attention more in Spanish.
That's that. I want to say this too. Like I'm half Filipino, and I grew up speaking Tagalog. I grew up in the Philippines, and I despise myself sometimes because when I moved over here, I was so immersed in the English language, and I had to take like phonetics classes and like a bunch of lessons that like they basically drilled the Tagalog out of me, and I can then still understand. I can still speak it, but the thing about language that I love was the fact that you had a bridge to your community. You had a bridge to your ethnic background. And I feel that nowadays it's like everything is so Americanized. I don't want to say like Americanized, but everything is English. Like you go to the Philippines now, everyone speaks English, and it's like they're trying to accommodate for you, and I'm like, I don't want you to accommodate for me because I'm a tourist. Like I want to be a traveler, I want to be someone here, and like I will learn. So like on the flight there the weeks before, I was like on Duolingo speaking Tagalog and stuff and trying to get it back, and it's like it's a bridge to your culture, and I think that's the important thing. I think Marcos and I talked about that a lot because as a nutrition coach, performance health coach, I'm in Southern California, and it's just like how so many Spanish speaking people, so many Tagalog speaking people, so many different backgrounds. They have specific things about their culture that I'll never know. I'll be so blind to it, and it's a bridge to creating better relationships.
And it's too naive of us to assume that everyone should adapt to the American culture, which is not the best anyways. And also just fun fact for the podcast listeners, Seamus and I did not talk previously about the whole Filipino Tagalog thing. So he did not know that my
I did not know
family
that.
by marriage is Filipino. I've been to the Philippines. I've been to Manila, Tagaytay. My aunt and uncle out there are doctors. And so, but it's really cute. My dad and I did Duolingo together to try to learn Tagalog, but it's incredibly hard. Like Spanish and Italian, right, come from the same root, but Tagalog is, well, actually Tagalog has like a Spanish undertone
We've
as
been
well.
we've been sacked like a billion times over from like Spain and Europe. So, but if you were to think, Filipinos are. I asked my mom once. I was like, "What are Filipino people like truly if they weren't sacked by like Spaniards and stuff?" They're like, she's like, it's a form of like these Pacific Islanders that are also like, I don't know what the cultures were, but there are a bunch of different Asian type cultures that kind of coalesced over there.
Yeah, because there's a lot of Filipinos that are in Hawaii.
Mhm.
That's also a
Yeah.
large Filipino area too. But
Yeah.
side note, Marcos,
Yeah,
what are you?
Oh yeah, my last name's not on here. I'm Puerto Rican and Sicilian technically. So they say, right? If I do a 13 or 23 and me, we might find I'm truly just a mutt, you know. But and again, like this is also part of that cultural upbringing part. Like I didn't grow up with my Hispanic speaking grandparents, but I guarantee you I would be fluent because I wouldn't have had a choice. Because that my interests were and still are like trying to figure that out and understanding cultural things. So I can pick up and listen and I can hear it. And even with Italian, because it's very similar, you can kind of pick up on what's going on. So again, like, those are all rooted in like English speaking or, Latin essentially. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, it sucks that I didn't have that opportunity to be with those grandparents because actually I didn't have a relationship with my dad's dad because there was a language barrier. Just he came here, he broke in English, working a steel mill in the middle of Ohio, and I'm like, I really would like to know what went on in his mind, as I did get to go see him during holiday stuff.
Wow. A steel mill in Ohio? Whoa, that is a strong man.
Oh yeah.
I think I don't know if you ever meet people and you go, these are my people, right? And then you meet someone and you go, this is not my people. For me, the people that I love seek to understand, if that makes sense, right? So it is so easy to look at someone and say, oh, they don't fit this description, or they don't speak my language or whatever. And my thing is like, God, I want to learn more about this person. Like, wow, they're from France. Like, oh, so this is a really fun story for you guys because I have a lot of really off the wall stories. When I was 22, I got accepted. I got a job in Belgium. I literally picked up, left everyone I knew, had a boyfriend at the time. I said, sucks to suck. And I went to Belgium. Okay. I said, don't forget about me. Okay,
I'll
we're
be
still
back.
going. Be back. I don't know when, but you better not leave. And I moved to Belgium, and I remember my dad dropped me off at the airport, and I'm like hauling my bags. I had went to Mexico, but I had never left the U.S. outside of Mexico. And I was 22, and I got this job at a magazine, and I said, okay. It was like an outside sales position / kind of marketing position back in, well, I was 22, so that was 2012. So I fly there, I get there, I land, and then I'm supposed to get picked up, but they call me and tell me, we can't get you picked up. You have to take the train. Okay. Let's talk about cultural experiences. I'm in Brussels. And so I almost break the credit card machine. I finally get on the train. Everything is in Dutch. People are speaking to me in Dutch. I don't speak Dutch. So I'm like, and then I just point at my ticket and I go, am I going to the right place? And she goes, no, the train splits in half. I said, what do you mean? So apparently it goes like this. And I was on the wrong half. So then I have to take both my bags and I'm running through this train and people are saying like, oh, Americans. And I'm like, sorry. So I get there, right? And I'm like picturing I'm going to land in Belgium and it's going to be like, I don't know, like Harry Potter. I don't know. It's really stupid, but that's what I'm expecting, right? And I get off in Antwerp, okay? And there's goats. And I said, what am I, right? My whole life flashed before my eyes. And I go, and there's this black van and the doors open and they're like, Chrissy? I said, oh, I'm going to die, but I'm too stubborn. So I'm still going to die. And I said, yeah, that's me. And I got in. And they drove me to this house, okay? And they were recruiting people from all over the world. So there's probably thousands of applicants. And there was 18 of us. My roommate was from Spain. There was a guy from France. There was whatever. There's a video of me teaching everyone burpees outside. And then I have this little tiny roommate that I used to use as a deadlift bar because the gym was an hour away. This was when I was in CrossFit. And I was like, I would literally put her on my back and I would squat her for reps because I was so fiending for lifting. Because I had been in CrossFit.
Hold on. Did I just imagine Chrissy? She's just fiending for the lift and pump that this poor lady is just getting used and she's just like there like 30 minutes later, just like this, held as a barbell, doing squats, push-ups, whatever. Oh my god, dude. Chrissy, I love that. I love that about you because like I'm such a like I need to get my workout in too that like I will find a way to make it happen and that is so funny.
I will send you guys the video so you can have it. So this poor girl, she's really tiny and I didn't slam her down. I remember, but I would just be deadlifting her. I was back squatting her. I was lecturing her. Like I would be like, hey, you ready to work out? But it's actually me working out with her. Like,
oh my goodness.
What is wrong with me?
Well, I guess you can really CrossFit anywhere.
Oh man.
When I taught them all burpees, it's like my French roommate was sitting there smoking. Okay. So he's in the background smoking in the house, which I used to yell at him not to do. But in France, it's very different. I would say, you're gross. Get out of here. And he would say, you didn't tell me what to do. And I would say, no, I do. Get out of here smoking. Then there was another guy from New York. And then the video just pans outside. And it's me doing burpees with this girl from Canada. And then this other girl that's fully in a dress. And I was just like, drop down. And we jump back up, clap over your head. And I'm like, just a drill sergeant over here to get people to do burpees. And I was teaching people handstand push-ups against the wall. And like, yeah, it was because we were literally isolated. So it was like the Real World MTV, and we were just put in two houses. We would have a driver take us to work and a driver drop us off. A driver would take us to the grocery store. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know if it was a social experiment.
Yeah. Were you on some hidden camera type of shit here in Belgium? Just like straight up, like you're just being.
Okay.
They didn't pay you.
I may have also been on a hidden camera show, but maybe we could talk about that later.
Yeah, Chrissy, no, this is freaking awesome. I think this is a great story. It's been an hour. We just want to be respectful of your time, but Marcos, any last questions? I just want to make sure that we're all good here, man.
Deep contemplative thought. Yeah, I think, I guess my last question here, because you brought up TikTok quite a few times, and we all know what's kind of going on right now in the world with potential banning of that? Like, what are your thoughts about that, and how does that change the landscape with regards to, again, maybe the more of the Gen Z type kids and that marketing influence, but does it change a lot of things for your industry with that potential of that not ceasing to exist in the near future?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So this TikTok ban, um, okay, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but essentially, I mean, it's the only thing our government ever agreed on, which is kind of bullshit. Like we have like more pressing matters, but the thing is that we as people, because of Gen Z and millennials, will find a way to share information or use our freedom of speech in any way. So a lot of creators are switching over to YouTube. Everything comes down to the searchability. So Gen Z is using TikTok like Google. So we go on Google and we search something, right? People are using TikTok for that search feature now. Restaurants near me. Okay. Mind blowing. One. Two, TikTok is for Gen Z the second largest search engine. Okay, like they're not even on Google. Then we go to millennials.
Well,
Millennials
what's their first
YouTube.
one
Gen Z is TikTok, YouTube.
for their search engines? Number 1 and 2.
Search engine, yeah.
Oh.
Millennials is YouTube, Google, and then TikTok. There's this amazing article that just came out called "Gen Z Broke the Marketing Cycle" from Vogue, and it's an amazing article. So you guys, I mean, I don't know if you work with that, but it's really good. I don't think that TikTok actually will ever get banned, just based on some of the facts of like they would have to sell it, but how the contract was built is like they literally can't sell it because of the rules of Singapore. So I really don't think I don't think that's something we have to worry about, to be honest. And if that is the case, there are already apps that are being created that are similar to TikTok to offset that. Like the thing about, I guess, I don't know if maybe the government thinks that we as people will just be like disheartened by this, but if anything, people are angry right now, and angry people get things done. And so I do think that we will just create another TikTok app. We will create another form of communication. Like before TikTok, if I wanted real information, quick and dirty, I don't want lies, I go to Reddit. You know, Reddit's going to tell me the dirty facts to my face, right? And it's like, but if think about the psychology of that, why do I trust some guy with no username, no picture? And it's like, because they have no agenda. They really don't. Like they're talking shit about this product or they like this product. And then they give you real facts about why they like it. The new version of Reddit is becoming TikTok. And it could be, if we think about it, is it because it's people's faces? Is it because it's really hard to lie when you're talking? Like, is it because it's people are actually green screening everything and showing facts? But TikTok is becoming the new place to search for real information.
That actually makes a lot of sense in terms of a political, from an informational standpoint, because like, for example, yesterday we had someone from the Mark Bell Power Project on the pod, and the whole concept there was you're making information like it's longer form, like an Instagram post is obviously supposed to be inflammatory, quick hits, and then the whole thing is the 4 hours that you listen to whoever. And I was just telling him, I was like, yeah, you guys are making information. Not only are you getting both sides, but you're trying to find a way to come into the middle and go, hey, this is how we're doing it for ourselves. And you're trying to bridge the gap between the right and the left, whether that's political or just ideologies, whatever that is. And I think that's the important part. And I think I can see where the anger can come from with the fact that people are basically putting a limit on how you get information, or a limit on how you get trustworthy information. And that can be very, on the government's hand, I think it might backfire on them. And then that honestly, I might even just get shot right now talking about it, but you know what I'm saying? You know, so yeah.
Did you hear about the Boeing whistleblower?
Yes. That's a big, that story is super, brought out all that information, and then he winds up, like, and
he winds up committing suicide in his car.
Yeah, it's like an Epstein story. Probably shouldn't say that either. This video will then get banned because we've now said everything. That's potential conspiracy theory.
Just cut that part out.
But yeah.
but nonetheless, it's like that one. You just kind of blew my mind with that statistic because I wouldn't think of using that as a search engine. But again, like I would search
Yeah,
for a
me neither.
recipe. Like I would think of it as more of like a kind of a Pinteresty kind of search. Not necessarily where I'm going to get my news and information slash my um again like my Yelp review. You know what I mean? Again, there's my millennial showing. I'm like, actually. My cousin sent me Yelp reviews of these restaurants when we were in Columbus, and I was like, "Who the fuck uses Yelp anymore?" Like, like
Dude, I love Yelp. I love you. I'm a diehard Yelper, okay?
well, he's slightly older than me, like by a year and a half. So like maybe you're in that category too. I'm not saying that you're old, but older. But that's another thing that I think is just super freaking interesting is like 1 or 2 years difference in even a millennial category is vastly different on your engagement or social media tools or things that you utilize as a potential piece to like market yourself or then be marketed to. And I mean,
Yeah.
I
Wow.
can only imagine how convoluted your job can be at times thinking about that. But again, I think that's where you poignantly point out like the niching then matters because then you can focus on, I mean, what is there, at least 5 like big like hubbed areas for social media, right? Like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and maybe LinkedIn, right? Those are like the biggest ones that I can think of. But I know Snapchat's also
YouTube.
up there. I wounldn't think of YouTube as really a social media channel, but I get like your argument there.
Now they created YouTube Shorts, which is trying to compete with TikTok, but it doesn't have the searchability of TikTok, but it has a different algorithm. So it's more search based. So you have to have the intent to look for it. But now we're serving people content or long form content.
Yeah, I mean,
Dang.
we piggybacked off of our reels to shorts and shorts to then help with try to drive a little traffic a little bit last year as a just again, like we're already making these videos and posting them here. We just duplicate the post effectively and see what happens. And it's like, God, it's really fascinating. I kind of wish I just miss like going into Blockbuster, in all honesty, or Hollywood Video,
My
and
gosh. And then your parents would never let you buy candy. And
yep,
they're like, this candy's 10 times more expensive. And you're like, but it's right here and I want it so bad. Like talk
Yeah.
about delayed gratification when they would never let you get that candy. But I miss Blockbuster. And then think about the psychology of this because as millennials, we deal with a lot of nostalgia,
oh yeah,
right? So I want you to think about this. Picture a current website, but it is made to look like 2000s, okay? Clicky,
Oh.
yes.
like an
And
aim.
it's like selling nostalgia. Yeah. Like AIM sounds being the paperclip guy. And it's
Oh
like,
my God.
let's say it's like let's just say it's a sun care, sunscreen, right? Something that like where it ties into the nostalgia, right? Um, that would kill it for millennials. So we're building businesses to be more efficient, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to convert to the masses because there also can be a website that's purely based on nostalgia, right? That literally looks like Craigslist that can still have super high conversions because of the
Yeah.
feeling, the emotion it's making you feel.
No, that's so funny you say that because lately I've been seeing some of this 90s trend come back up. Like we went to Melrose, my fiance and I, and everyone's like wearing baggy skate clothes, ladies looking like
Oh,
they're
don't even get me started on that. Baggy clothes are back in, low rise jeans. No,
uh,
don't do that. Oh, I saw people wearing capris. I said, "Excuse me, capris? Don't bring those back here. Don't bring that in here."
here's a good one. Sobe.
Soey.
It's like,
Remember remember that
do
one?
you know the trauma we went through? Okay, do you remember when women would wear like those tiny little vests? It was like a vest. It was like, why did we dress business casual to go to the club? Why does that make sense? Okay. I was out here in a little suit jacket at 21 in the club getting down. Why was that?
Different
Why?
time. Different time. Yeah. But anyways, oh man, we're gonna have to do a part 2, Marcos. We're definitely gonna have to do a part 2.
Absolutely,
Chrissy,
absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated you divulging into that topic, and then actually love the free flow conversation. We're gonna do a part 2 for sure. But where can people find you if they want to work with you? If you're doing freelance marketing, and maybe it's a company or a person, a business, where can they get you? And we'll close it off there.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's www.growthmarketinghacks.com. And I'm on TikTok. My TikTok channel is at Work Trauma Podcast because I have my own podcast. And I talk about toxic workplaces and work trauma and how to heal from them.
Awesome. We'll have that in the show notes below. It was a great episode. I think we're definitely do a part 2. Maybe go on your show, talk about that. But guys, other than that, macro perspective peeps, we will be we're out, and comment below and let us know what you liked about the episode. Thanks so much, guys.